Okay, this is the 1-3 part C notes using studies wisely. We're going to look at the AP topics 2D. So what you should learn is to describe the scope and inference that is appropriate in a statistical study, evaluate whether a statistical study has been carried out in an ethical manner. So we're going to look again at 2D, which is generalizability of results and types of conclusions that can be drawn from observational studies, experiments, and surveys. And we want to use the four-step process to state, plan, do, and conclude for statistical problems demand consistency, and so do their answers. Okay, so scope and inference has two parts to it. You need to make an inference about the population, and you need to make an inference about cause and effect. So this chart actually shows you two ways that the two questions that are asked, and based on your answers, whether or not you can make those inferences for the population or about the cause and effect. So the first one is, were the individuals randomly assigned to groups? If the answer is yes, the second question is, were the individuals randomly selected? So if both of those are answered yes, then you can make an inference about the population and make an inference about the cause and effect. If, however, there is no random assignment to groups, then you can only make an inference about the population. You cannot make an inference about the cause and effect. If, however, you do have the groups assigned randomly, but the individuals inside those groups are not randomly selected, you cannot make an inference about the population, but you can make an inference about the cause and effect for the sample itself. And then finally, if you have no randomization of the groups or on the assignments, then you cannot make an inference about the population or the cause and effect. And we're going to look at an example of how each one of these scenarios would play out. So the silence is golden example. Many students insist that they study better when listening to music. A teacher doubts this claim and suspects that listening to music actually hurts academic performance. Here are 4 possible study designs to address this question at your school. In each case, the response variable will be the student's GPA at the end of the semester. So in the first situation, we have all of the students in the AP class are going to participate, and then they divide them into 2 groups based on a specific question. The second one, we choose a sample of the students from the entire school, but then divide them the same way as design 1. The third one, you still use only the students in your AP statistics class, but you do randomly assign half the students to listen to music while the other do not. And then the last one, you randomly choose a random sample of students from the entire population of the school and randomly assign them to the study groups. So for each design, suppose the mean GPA for students who listened to music while studying was significantly lower than the mean GPA who didn't listen to music while studying. What can we conclude? So for the first situation, there was no random selection, so the results could only be applied to the AP students. And there was no random assignment, so we could not decide if there was conclude anything about cause and effect. With the second one, we had random selection amongst the entire population, so we can apply. It can be applied to the entire population, but there was also not any random assignments, so we cannot conclude anything about cause and effect. With the third situation, there was, again, no random selection, so we cannot apply this to any of the students outside the AP statistics course, but there was random assignment of the study groups, so we can determine cause and effect, but only for the kids in that class. And the last one is the random selection, which allows us to apply it to the entire population of the school. And there was random assignment, so we can establish cause and effect between listening to music while studying and the GPA for all the students at the school. So some challenges of establishing causation is lack of realism, which can limit our ability to apply the conclusions of an experiment to the settings of greatest interest. And in some cases, it isn't practical or even ethical to do an experiment. In such cases, there are criteria for establishing causation when we can't do an experiment. First of all, the association has to be strong. The association has to be consistent. Larger values of explanatory variables are associated with stronger responses. The alleged cause precedes the effect in time, and the alleged cause is plausible. Okay, and this section is not going to be covered on the AP test, but it is important if you're doing any kind of statistical analysis. These are basically the ethics that are involved, the rules involved in getting started with your study. All planned studies must be reviewed in advance by the Institutional Review Board charged with protecting the safety and well-being of the subjects. All individuals who are subjects in the study must give their informed consent before data are collected, and all individual data must be kept confidential. Only statistical summaries for groups of subjects may be made public. Note that confidentiality is not the same as anonymity. Anonymity means that the individuals are anonymous. Their names are not known even to the director of the study. So this actually does happen when you get into college level courses, especially in psychology courses and when you get into master's level courses. When I was doing my master's in business, I had to do a statistical a study as part of my thesis, and I had to go through each one of these steps. The first step was I had to identify my population, which in this case was business owners who use online services for um, promoting their business. And so I had to fill out an application and submit it to the UMHB review board. After they determined that none of the questions I was asking and none of the information that I was gathering was going to be harmful to any of the subjects, I then created a survey in which the very first thing they had to do was to sign a informed consent. I had to tell them exactly what the survey was about and exactly what the data was going to be used for, and also assure them that their information would be kept confidential. And finally, with the particular program that I used to gather the data, it did gather emails for the individuals so that there was a ability for me to check to make sure that there was not two identical people or the same person didn't submit twice or something like that, which did not make it completely anonymous, but it was basically as close as you can get. And in that case, um, when I was publishing my actual findings, I basically put it into charts. I did a statistical analysis with mean, median, modes, and standard deviation, etc. And then my conclusions. So these are things that you would do in a real world uh, situation, which we will come back to at the end of the school year when we do our capstone project.